present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Hello, everybody. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Roger Anghis. He's a pastor and author of the book Defining American Exceptionalism. That's his latest book. His other book, which of course I didn't write down, so I can Discovering America's Christian Heritage, I believe, is his prior book, and it's a subject that I'm very interested in because we hear about American exceptionalism in the news so often in mainstream media. Especially from the hardcore conservative side of the aisle. Most of that, I believe, in my opinion, is misunderstood, misinterpreted, and misused. And I hope that Roger today can enlighten us and maybe clarify that. We are an exceptional nation in many ways, but at least to me, each individual is exceptional if we recognize it, you know. So, Roger, thank you very much for being on our program.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Joe.
Okay, there you are. Now you're on our screen. Very good. Roger, you need to help me out. American exceptionalism, to me, has always been a term that I thought was almost pompous in a way when used by mainstream media, saying that, you know, we can do this because we're exceptional. It's almost as if, you know, my wife caught me cheating on her. I say, but honey, I'm exceptional. It's okay. You should forgive me. You know, that type of thing.
You know, if you listen to Fox News, I think Sean Hannity says it about 5 times a week about
Right.
America's exceptionalism.
Right.
And back when I wrote this book, which was 5 years ago, actually, I got into studying how, being a student of history from the time I was maybe 7 or 8 years, how they acted in public is how they acted in private. And when you read the writings of the founding fathers, and there's approximately 250 of them, you'll find that they based their lives, they based their businesses, they based their associations, they based everything on one thing, and that's the Bible, the biblical principles. They lived by them. They ran their businesses by them. They ran their associations according. If you weren't a biblical person, if you didn't live your life in a biblical manner, they'd go on down the road and do something else. They wouldn't associate with you. So what I found, the reason that America is so exceptional, the biggest reason is because God blessed this nation. And the only way God can bless America, or could bless America, is because America lived according to God's principles and his precepts. And this is what I found. In my book, Defining America's Exceptionalism, I discussed the roots of our education system. I discussed the roots of our judicial system. I discussed the roots of the founding of the type of government we have, which every bit of it comes directly out of Scripture. And we are the only nation the world has ever seen that has done that. And because we have done that, just like Solomon was blessed, I mean, he became the wisest man the world had ever seen, as well as the richest man the world has ever seen. And that's because we say in the church world, he continuously sought God, and other people like that, Roger Smith. And then I also cover something that most people have never learned anything about, and that's the pastors of the founding era. And I went back a little bit. I went back to the 1600s and covered some of the pastors from around 1620 on, and I discovered that what they preached from the pulpit is the information that they preach from the pulpit, and the concepts and the precepts and the principles is what you find that was written in the Declaration of Independence. And the bottom line to all of this is America is exceptional because it was founded strictly on the principles. Well, let me put it this way. I've got a quote from
you go on and on, all the little sayings that they had. But didn't we do, or haven't we done a great job of destroying that very premise?
Yeah, we have.
Okay, all right, we're on the same page then, because it seems that we've become exceptionally nasty people. I remember when I was in Europe in I think it was 1960. I'm showing my age, by the way. And I actually saw and met John F. Kennedy there. It was in Naples, and I didn't know he was coming. I was just young at the time. I was roaming around, and bingo, I turn around, and there he is in a car, and he's standing up in a car, no protection whatsoever, and I'm in shock. And I said, "That's JFK." And I yelled, "Hey, Jack," and he turned to me, and he waved at me, and I waved back, and the people were beside themselves. I mean, in fact, if you got into if a cop stopped you for speeding and you said Kennedy, they let you go. That's how much they loved America. Today, they dislike America because of our intrusion, because we say we're exceptional, thus we can almost do anything we want, and you have to accept it. And I think we've taken that definition of exceptionalism, or the gift. No, let me put it this way: that gift of exceptionalism, and we've used it in a very, very poor and destructive manner. Are you with me with that, or am I off the page?
Well, to a certain extent, we have done that, but there's also an educational process, or I would have to refer to it as a so-called educational process behind what has happened there. In American colleges and universities, for the most part, our kids are being taught that all of the world's problems, all of them, are caused by America's capitalistic system.
Oh,
and,
yeah, okay, yeah, all right.
And okay, from that comes, okay, you think you're exceptional, you're being arrogant, and that's where a lot of that comes from. We are exceptional because we are still a Christian nation. I don't care what Barack Obama says. When 80% of the population still identifies itself with Christianity, we're not a Muslim nation. We never will be a Muslim nation, at least not while the church is still here. And but we have strayed drastically from our founding principles.
Right. Okay.
When you read how they lived and how they talked and how they believed during and leading up to the founding era, and even all the way to the beginning of the 20th century. It was right around 1920 is when things started to shift and go into a humanistic point of view. And it's taken, almost 100 years for that to occur, but we are seeing that we have 6% at that time. We had 6%, we've got less than that now, right. But at that time we had 6% of the farmable land in the world.
Okay.
But because we lived under biblical principles and we sought God's face and we operated under a free market system, which I firmly believe is God's idea, not government's idea. Russia could not feed herself.
Correct.
we fed the world.
Right. Roger, could you hold it right there? We have someone on phone, I think, that wants to ask a question, and I don't want it to hold too long. They may hang up on us, okay?
Sure.
All right. Could we put them on the line, please? Caller, you're on the line, please. Thank you very much for calling. Your question or comment, please. Caller?
Did he press 1?
Right, yeah. You've got to click on that.
Yeah, the little microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Maybe he's not there. Or did he press 1? He's supposed to press 1.
No. Oh, yeah, the caller's supposed to press 1.
So
Caller, you press 1, and you'll be on the air. And then you just press on the first box,
Yeah.
the first box of the microphone. We're not there?
Yeah, he must not be there.
We lost him?
We lost him.
You sure? Okay, I'm sorry, we lost our caller for some reason. Caller, if you're still on the air, please call back. We'll try this once again. All right. Now, let me play, and I'll use the words devil's advocate. I guess that's an appropriate term, isn't it? If I'm going to disagree with you, I'll play devil's advocate. But when we say American exceptionalism, aren't we saying that we were exceptional because of the principles that we adopted? For example, the freedom of the individual to choose, a government of, for, and by the people. Isn't this the true exceptionalism? While Europe and other countries, it was really the people who lived for the government, or the government dictated what was free. All right, I think we have our caller back again. Let's see. Just caller, you're on the air. This aggravates me to no end. Are you clicking on that first box?
I've got him brought up.
Hello.
There you go. Here we go.
Hello, this is Pat.
Kat?
Hello, this is Pat. Am I?
All right, hold on a second. We're trying to get you to come in. I can hear her now,
Yeah.
but I hear her very choppy. Very.
She's chopping.
All right. Kat, are you speaking directly into your phone? Are you on a cell phone?
Yes, I'm on a cell phone. I'm driving. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Here.
I can hear you, but you're still very low. Can you turn it up a little
Did
bit?
you get my question, or you did not hear my question?
All right, a little bit louder, please. Put a little louder.
I was asking the speaker to please return to his point. Economic.
Okay. What she's asking is our school system using the term capitalism in a negative sense to make it a negative give it a negative connotation.
The school system does use the term capitalism negatively. Even back in the 60s, when I was in junior high school, they started using the term capitalism in a negative context. And fortunately, the teachers that I had reaffirmed the importance of capitalism and what capitalism has done. Capitalism has raised more people out of poverty than all systems, other systems the world has ever seen throughout the entire known history of man combined. So we've, when national disasters strike around the world, the earthquakes in Pakistan, the tsunami that hit Indonesia in 2005, the American people gave more than anyone else, even entire nations. We gave more money than our government gave as individuals. You cannot do that under communism. You cannot do that under any other system than capitalism. And when you look at scripturally, we are, let me get this. Being an ordained minister, I have to follow the precepts of Christianity. For the need, be self-sufficient, possessing enough to require no aid or support, and furnished in abundance for every good work and charitable donation. You can't live your life like that and be on welfare.
Correct.
You have to be very well-to-do. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 14, talks about the prosperity that God is willing to allow us to live under, as long as we follow His voice and listen to what He is saying, and follow His principles. And it states in there that you're going to be blessed coming and going, getting up and laying down. Everything that you set your hand to is going to be blessed. And you, not as a nation, as an individual, you will lend unto many nations, and you will not borrow.
Right.
Okay? There's no other system.
I could never understand how we use capitalism in any other way, and I think it confuses people, because people say, well, capitalism is bad. Well, how could it be bad to take your hard-earned money and invest it in buying a piece of machinery to produce something? I mean, whether you're a communist or whatever you are, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there needs a fine definition, so everyone is talking the same thing. I know liberals talk about the perils of capitalism. Well, they have no idea what they're talking about, because when they say the perils of capitalism, they're saying the perils of me taking my money, investing it in equipment to produce something is bad. There's nothing bad about that, no matter which way you look at it. Now, how do you respond to that, and what is your opinion?
Well, capitalism, if we didn't have capitalism, this world would be in pretty bad shape. Well, governments could not.
What is your definition, though, Pastor? What is your definition of What is your definition of capitalism then?
Capitalism is using what resources that you have to not only better yourself, but to make society better and to benefit society.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There's free market capitalism, and then there's crony, as we hear, crony capitalism. Yeah. That's when I get favors from the government because I contributed, X millions of dollars to someone's campaign, and as a result, they provide me with a contract to build, an F-16 or something, or some airplane, and that's capital, but it's crony capitalism. I'm not talking about that. That's not real capitalism. That's convoluted capitalism, if you will. All right? We're on the same page with that, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, very good. So we're talking about free market capitalism, and I really wish we would all qualify that when we talk about it, because there's nothing bad about free markets. There's nothing bad about people being free to choose what they want to do with their life, what they want to produce, and what they want to present to society, provided that they are not being harmful to society.
Well, we see the drastic and massive hypocrites from the liberals' point of view concerning what they call nasty capitalism. As a perfect example, Michael Moore, the so-called movie maker,
right,
is always dissing capitalism, but he's worth $25 million plus, and he owns 11 homes. Under the economic system that he espouses, which is what they have in Cuba, you don't have one house, let alone
right.
11 houses.
You own nothing. The state owns everything, and I wonder if he would be happy if the state says, "Well, we're going to take title to all of your personal and real property, and we will give you what we feel you deserve, and we're going to proportion the rest out to the rest of society," which means proportion the rest out of ourselves a Christian nation or a God-fearing nation, because we talk about the separation of church and state. So we really, from a political point of view, we should espouse the all religions, because it's a free nation and you can believe whatever you want. But how do we consider ourselves a Christian nation when we send drones or have airstrikes off of aircraft carriers to bomb certain areas, knowing that there's going to be considerable collateral damage? I mean, there's no such thing. And the person that we are tracking and want to kill has really not been convicted in a court of law, but is a suspected terrorist. So we want to rid ourselves of that person because we feel that that person may be harmful to the United States. So we drop this cluster bomb or whatever in an area, and unfortunately 3 or 4 children get killed, men, women, and elderly get killed, and possibly, maybe, we also take out the person that we intended to take out in the first place, but we're not even sure. Now, that happens daily, almost daily, I should say, and this is one reason why the United States is losing its luster. Now, how does a president or a Congress condone such behavior and yet then call itself a Christian nation when it's violating the very, very first principle, thou shalt not kill? And I find that very upsetting, by the way. Maybe you could help me out, make me feel better about that.
Well, that is a sometimes it's kind of tough to maybe your own personal gain.
Right.
Okay. When you also got to keep in mind that Jesus gave told the disciples, if you don't have a sword, the second time he sent the 70 out, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It wasn't for a fashion statement.
Right.
Okay? It was for self-defense. There is not a problem in the case of self-defense or the preservation of your nation to take somebody out. Now, in war, unfortunately, things happen. And I don't like it when you have collateral damage. But dealing with the people that we're dealing with now, they purposefully put children around them.
And who dies? I mean, I don't see any difference between that and back hundreds of years ago when you had a king that said, off with his head, or, thumbs up, thumbs down, all that stuff. I don't see any different. I think we're just as barbaric today, if not more barbaric, than we were years ago. It doesn't seem that a nation that God has blessed is very happy with that.
Well, look what the Allies did to Germany in World War II. And look what we did to Japan right at the end of World War II. Civilians became the unfortunate targets. And, I've often wondered, why did we target civilians when we should be targeting, the military? And when you look at the city of Dresden, was firebombed. They had 200, I believe it was 200 bombers flew over that town one night, and just incinerated virtually the whole city. And I think they said somewhere around the vicinity of 45,000 civilians died in that. What you're looking at is the civilian population is doing absolutely nothing to curtail what the government is doing. And you have to start, and this is a very unfortunate thing, and I think it's just part of human nature. You have to do something to make the people rise up and tell the government to stop.
Okay, let's stop at that note, Pastor, for a second, because we are late for station identification. If you'll just don't go away, okay?
Okay.
You promise? Okay. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you.
You're listening to Liberty
Specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
I have difficulty still understanding when we say a country is exceptional. I think people are exceptional. I think if people act in a certain way, you have an exceptional society, an exceptional country. Just like if you had a bunch of people who, in a country that did nothing but lay around and did nothing but steal from one another, that would be exceptionally bad, obviously, you know. But we don't. We are going that way. We're having more and more people not working, expecting someone else to work for them, and that bothers me. So it's really the people and not so much. We'll be given the opportunity by having a country with adequate natural resources. We're separated from all of the old country wars and fourboils and whatever. And now we seem to be reversing course and saying, hey, we want to become part of the rest of the world and have the same problems that you have. My problem is, like, for example, during World War II, at the end of World War II, Japan was on its knees. And in fact, if you look at the secret documents that used to be, secret documents, the Japanese were really trying hard to surrender. But even at that time, we decided to throw an atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And there was a lot of discussion whether or not we should have targeted a military complex or civilian. And they decided on civilian. Now, why, I really don't know. And they did it at midday when children went out in schoolyards and millions of little children were killed. Now, you can say, well, we were at war. But yet we had a decision. We could have made a decision, and we could have won that war even without dropping the atomic bombs the way we do. We could have dropped it out in sea and said, if you wanted to get any closer, don't surrender. But we decided not to do that. To me, that's an exceptional wrongdoing. And so I have this problem with American exceptionalism, and I really think the rest of
what it was 100 years ago.
Correct.
By any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's not what it was when I was growing up in the 50s. But I still, unless media isn't reporting it, I don't recall a situation at any time when somebody down in Florida jumped in a rowboat and paddled down to Cuba because things were so much better in Cuba.
Oh, absolutely. But taking Cuba, much of the problems in Cuba is because of our embargo on Cuba, and that didn't hurt the leaders of Cuba. That hurt the individuals on the street. But go ahead.
Well, see, again, you've got to. it's the people that change the government. And if the people don't voluntarily change the government, then things have to be done, unfortunately, to make those people demand a change in the government. Now, we put those, that mentality, that type of government is what we have seen all throughout history, all around the world. And that is the type of government that our founding fathers fought against, and to make sure that we didn't have. We now have the government that we fought to not have.
That's right. We've actually bought into what we were very much against worldwide. And we're buying into that now. And at the same time, we are questioning, why aren't things better than they are? Why are things going down the tubes? Well, because you're voting that way. That's exactly, you're asking for it, and then you're saying, well, why do I have this? It's because that's exactly what you asked for. But then the media, of course, brainwashes everyone, because the people don't read, they don't think, they don't discuss, they don't interact like they used to. They just listen to the boob tube, memorize what they hear, and they say, well, that's the way it is. I don't see a reversal. How do we change this mentality when we were supposed to be a free nation where everyone was free to pursue their own course of action, regardless of they were Christians or non-Christians or non-believers or believers? It made no difference whatsoever. Everyone was free to pursue their course in life, provided they did not infringe on the equal rights of others. How do we change that?
Well, I think part of the problem is our education system. We no longer teach what you just described. We teach that we need to look to the government to solve our problems. That's what our schools, from kindergarten almost all the way through college, that's what they teach.
That's right.
And then Colorado here that are fighting Common Core like crazy. Now, Common Core, they're standards, okay? And the federal government sets those standards, and the federal government says, we're not setting the curriculum, so we're not messing with the education. Well, how stupid do they think they are? When they set the standards, this is what the kids have to end up learning. They just set the curriculum.
Right.
And that's exactly what has happened. And under the new Common Core, Christianity is a bloody religion, but Islam is a peaceful religion. Our founding fathers, the people that were involved in the Boston Tea Party, were domestic terrorists, but the 19 guys that flew the airplanes into the World Trade Center are freedom fighters.
Right.
That's what we're teaching our kids.
Right.
Congress has a 13% approval rating, and we sent 95% of them back to Washington, D.C. Now, a lot of people say, well, the problem we have are the people that are in Washington. Out of the 200 pastors that I invited, one showed up. I had pastors that, when I was sitting in a pew in a church, and I recognized a pastor well known in the Denver metropolitan area. I sat down next to him, and I told him what we were doing with this meeting. And I mean to tell you, the color went out of this man's face, and he started literally to scoot away from me because I brought up politics. And the separation of church and state is, well, to put it in vernacular that most people can understand, it's bull. Plain and simple. That 1947 decision, Evers versus the Board of Education, that stated that Thomas Jefferson, what he meant, and this is the idiotic thing, when he wrote the First Amendment, that he wanted that separation of church and state, and it's supposed to be impenetrable. Well, the problem is Thomas Jefferson did not write the First Amendment. A gentleman by the name of Fisher Ames wrote the First Amendment. There was a committee of 40 people that were on there, and it was the wording that he came up with that Congress accepted on September 17th of 1787, I think it was. And what Thomas Jefferson, they got that phrase separation of church and state from a letter that he wrote to the Danbury Baptist Association in 1801. They wrote him. They were concerned about, okay, the government is probably going to establish, a church just like they did in England with the Church of England.
Right, yeah.
And the Baptists were a little bit concerned about that. And his response, when you read that whole letter, it does call for a separation of church and state, but it's an institutional separation, meaning the federal government can do nothing concerning the church. It can't bar it. It can't do anything. But it did not call for a influential separation of church and state. Jefferson opened up every public building in Washington, D.C., all 8 years that he was president of the United States, for church services. And he required the Marine Band to play praise and worship at the church that met at the Capitol building. And he attended services every Sunday he was president. So, this separation of church and state is bull. The church is supposed to, Deuteronomy, I think it's 1:13. It calls for putting people in places of authority that love God, know God's principles, his precepts, and will govern the people according to those precepts and concepts. Romans chapter 13 talks about, a lot of people say, well, the present government that we have right now, we have to respect them. We have to do what they want because God put them in power, and we're supposed to, abide by their ruling. That is a bunch of bull hockey, because the Bible says that the people that are in authority, and God intended every person that's in authority to be a person that is going to espouse godly principles. Abortion,
they wish for everyone to be whole within their own faith, with whatever it may be. And there is no religious test, basically, to vote. You can be an atheist, agnostic, a Muslim, a Jew, a Catholic, a Bocanist, which is a fake religion I just made up. Whatever it is. But we are all people working together, trying to love one another, help one another, and just make a better society. Would that person thus be ineligible in your mind to run for office?
Our founding fathers never intended anybody but a Christian to hold a political office.
But there's no religious test for religious office. For public office.
Again, the founding fathers believed that if you held a political office, you had better be a Christian. And they warned the people about putting anybody but a Christian into political office. George Washington even stated that it would be a very bad situation if they ever put a Muslim in a political position. Now, you also have to look at today, our politicians run. They campaign. When our nation was founded, you went in and you wrote down somebody's name as to who you wanted to be in this position, who you wanted to be in this position. They would count them all up, and then whoever, say if it was the governor of a state, they would find out who got most of the votes, and then they would go and talk to that person and say, do you want to be governor? Everybody wants you to be governor. They felt that if you actually campaigned for that position, you were a shyster. And today, that's what we have, shysters.
Well, today, you don't have they feel that they need to say, in order to garner the votes, whether they mean it or not. There is my problem, because people profess to be religious, regardless of what religion you're referring to, but they're not. But they're doing so because they know it's politically expedient to do so. And what I find really surprising is that today you will find in some surveys, larger portion of people having more respect for Vladimir Putin than we have for our own president. Now that yells volumes of where we're going and how we've been. And yet he espouses to be a Christian, and he bases a lot of what he does on Christian principles, which I think is bogus. But again, it confirms what I said before. They say whatever they have to say in order to make it politically expedient. And by the way, I'm going to give you the last crack on that. But let me end with this, Pastor. You know, my mother was a great statesman. She didn't drive.
Finished discussing that. But as far as my book is concerned, you can go to my website, which is www.buildingthetruth.org, and you can get the book. There's a teacher's guide, a student study guide that goes with it, so it can be used in homeschool, private, or Christian school. It's a very easy read. It's being used in junior high schools right now, or junior high school students. And I've got my 10-year-old granddaughter using it right now, as a matter of fact.
That's wonderful.
So, I mean, it's not written with, great big long words that nobody can pronounce and nobody knows what.
You mean even I could understand it?
You probably could, sir.
Okay. All right, Roger, thank you. Whoop, we just lost you, Roger. Did you just lose Roger? Roger, are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay, we lost your picture. I think I'm going to... you have a gun, Roger? I'm going to use it right now on somebody.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do.
There we go. Good. Roger, I want to thank you. There, you're back again. I want to thank you so much for being on our program. You've been a wonderful guest. I'm sure all of our listeners have learned from it, and we want to thank you very much for taking your time to be on our show.
Well, it's been an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, let's play the music. Okay. Okay. We have all. There we go. All righty. This is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, but let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Folks, as my wife would say, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're just striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.